This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland right of the lane, locked to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The offseason continues to roll on, and unfortunately for the Cleveland Cavaliers, they have some news. Darius Garland underwent surgery on his big toe. To help me discuss this, as well as continuing our dive to look at what roster moves the Cavs are facing this offseason, is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Good. It's been a crazy stretch personally. So why not a little bit of crazy in Cavs Town? With some bad news, I guess I would say, but like I don't know. I'm curious how you felt, reacted to this one, because like on one hand, it sucks, and Darius is gonna have to rehab all summer, which means he doesn't get to work on his game all summer. Which means that, maybe camp might be in jeopardy. We're not sure based on some of the reporting out there in terms of his full recovery. But on the other side, there is like a little bit of validation for for two, card carrying members of the Darius Garland fan club, where, it feels like there's been a lot of people coming after, Darius for not being able to play like himself in that postseason. And it's like, well, see, like there is a little bit of that, right? So like, I don't know, like there's obviously I'd rather not feel validation and have him be fine and not need surgery, but there is like a little bit of that for me.
They're actually, surprisingly enough, and I'm someone that is prone to being smug. It's one of my best and worst traits, particularly when I feel like I'm right. Yeah, that's one of my default reactions to any news. But really, when I saw this news, I just kind of felt empathetic, right? Like, even to the people that had some doubts about what this run was, you're not operating with the information to make a judgment, right? And I think, so much of the conversation is unnecessarily combative. And I just feel like when people are reacting to the raw emotions of the situation, we all wanted the Cavs to go further than they did. It was a very disappointing moment. You're looking for any outlet there. You're not everybody is incentivized to think about things rationally and sit down on a microphone and try to make sense of it, right? Like you're really dealing with the emotions of the moment. So my instinct wasn't to go, hey, you see, you doubters, everything that went wrong. It's like, yeah, we're all pulling in the same direction, and this is unfortunate news. What you said about the offseason, that's disappointing, right? Like, I think there's probably still going to be a lot of work that he does end up doing. I think you're going to have opportunities to work on your body physically to try to, get your strength up and to add some weight. Probably you aren't able to add too much because you don't want to add more weight to the toe and all that. But, there is still opportunities to do some exercises. And the Cavs statement indicated that he's expected to make a full recovery and start to resume basketball activities around training camp. I still would expect him to miss some time into the regular season. Obviously, you're hoping that it's less than it is more. But, it's going to be a process. But part of me also thought back to 2015. Kyrie gets hurt in the finals. He misses the start of the next season. And even despite all of that occurring, even despite, it taking him until about February to look like himself, he still ended up taking that next step. He took that playoff leap that was necessary for the team to win a championship. So it's not like we don't have a precedent for it, but, obviously you would want a better outcome than what we got here.
Yeah, and I just do think it kind of just goes to show, like, injury luck is just a hard thing to manage, Yeah. And I think, there really is a lot of truth to the no one's healthy by the end of the year adage. And it's just about degrees at that point. And, the fact that it was bothering Darius for like 2 months before it got real bad on a complete freak incident as is just one of those things where you kind of have to settle in. And I kind of was like, I remember thinking to myself, and I might have said this on the podcast, of like, it's hard to like feel like you wasted your good luck injury season.
Yeah.
Where, you didn't lose anyone for the year, and you had general health, almost all your players played up, in the high 60s at least. Jarrett played all 82, and you feel like you wasted it, but like, I mean, at the end of the day, you still had a guy who was so hurt he needed surgery.
Yeah, and it's part of why
so maybe they weren't as lucky as we thought they were, I guess, is the crux.
Yeah, it's part of why when I look at the NBA Finals right now, I'm not sitting here being like, well, part of me still says it should have been us, just given the way that the rest of the breaks went. But at the same time, like when I watch Game 5, and I've actually watched back that series 3 times now. So
you're out of your mind.
I am out of my mind. I'm in a dark place here, Carter. But when I watch that back, Game 5 in particular, like Darius and Donovan, it was just so clear they didn't have more games left in them. Like they might have had 1 or 2, but if they even advance past Indiana, I think Donovan, this is pure speculation. I think it would have been like Boston where he gets shut down and he just can't complete the series. Like I thought it looked like that. I thought he was moving around in that way. Darius, it was just so clear that he, was in a very, very, serious situation physically, right? It's inevitable. Like when he was sitting out the first 2 games against Indiana, it's hard not to think, as you say, all these injuries are degrees, right? Like everybody's dealing with some sort of ailment when it comes to the playoffs. You're sitting there being like, well, Austin Reeves, he looked like crap, but he was playing through a toe sprain, right? Like you're wondering, what is this? What degree are we at when it comes to Darius? And then when he's playing in Game 3 and he just couldn't even maintain his balance at times, and he's falling flat on his face without real pressure on him, I'm like, okay, we're talking about something really serious here. And I thought maybe we were out of the woods when some time had elapsed from the regular season to this point now, that there wasn't going to be a surgery. But clearly, you try to maintain the situation, see if that's necessary. Some people always question, well, why wasn't the surgery done right away? There are issues when it comes to surgery, right? Like you have to deal with scar tissue. You have a lot of things going on. Like look at myself. I tore my Achilles and I didn't have surgery. Like it was full rupture. I know someone that actually had their hamstrings ripped from their hips and that was corrected without surgery, right? Like there are ways that you can manage those types of situations without going, the operative route. So, obviously it reached a point where they felt like this was necessary to clean this up and to guarantee the best possible outcome when it comes to his health.
Yeah. And also, I think it's like, it was just clear that this was an injury that you just kind of were waiting to get better. And when, I don't know how the team felt behind the scenes. Reporting is a tricky thing at best, let's just say, charitably, in terms of how injury reporting works in the league. But like, even Darius, I think, if you were to ask him, was like, damn, I thought this was going to be good by now, after he sat out those 2 Miami games, after the first one. And it was just like,
remember after Game 2, we debated, should they rest Darius for a game?
I know. Yeah, crazy. And I just think it was one of those things where the longer it didn't get better, the more like resigned I got to, this is not going to follow, a standard timeline. It's just going to be an injury that either like that we've left the standard deviation, right? With a toe injury. And especially just given that, athletes don't rehab like we rehab. I'm sure the real answer is don't walk on your toe for a month and a half, but that's just not really a thing players get to do. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if, the recovery was set back further by the fact that he did gut it out the last couple games. And of course, we're not doctors. We don't know. But it was just one of those injuries that I think, to your point about like, they didn't have any games left in them. I did. That's why the second he got ruled out for Game 2, I felt like the season was over.
Yeah.
And I texted several people as much because like I think that toe is screwed in a major way, and this is not the difference between 48 hours of rest at this point, and that clearly has borne out to be true.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's now 2 years in a row that the season really ended in injury, and both guards being limited in the playoffs, right? Like last year, Darius didn't get hurt in the playoffs, but he didn't really have that recovery time to get the weight back after the jaw, right? Like there was so much stuff going on. Obviously, he had the death in the family as well. Donovan missed post All-Star break and was not himself physically in the playoffs. Looked great against Miami, like games 1 and 2, both guards out there, running, they're flying all over the place. And then you see how the season ends, and both of them are limping and not making through it. And as much as we are advocates for, hey, we want to see the at least the bones of this team return. This is going to be one of those questions. This ultimately might be the story of the Cavs is they can't get through a playoff run fully healthy, right? Like we don't know. And so much of this is luck, right? Like even you can have something that's only a 10% chance of occurring, and you can spin that wheel a few times and you fall on that 10%, 2-3 straight times. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen the next time, but it, the more times it occurs, the worse it's going to feel. But I think, I still feel like our kind of how we feel about the off season is still the same. The Cavs owe it to themselves to see what options are available to them as they approach the second apron, and they're going to be limited in terms of movement. But when you look at really the ability to only make kind of 1-for-1 or 1-for-2 moves for players below from a salary standpoint, at the very least, I consider myself to be a creative guy. I just don't see a lot of trades out there that seem worthwhile when you're looking at those players below Darius, Donovan, and Evan.
Yeah, and before we talk about any of the apron stuff, and I know we're going to keep hitting on it all summer because I do think it's really important and noteworthy. I do think your probability, your spin the wheel metaphor does hold true because we want this to be merit based. We want this to be structure based, and it is, of course. Mm-hmm. There's a reason good teams stay good and bad teams tend to stay bad, right? There is a skid. We're not playing the slots here, but like the best percentage chance you have for a title, especially if you don't have a LeBron James generational Michael Jordan type of player, the best chance you're probably going to get if everything goes like, on any time you simulate a season is going to be like 25% of the title, 30% of the title, and every other in all these elements that play in, meaningfully knock that down, because it's like an injury to you and an injury to one of the other 29 teams are not equivalent, like in terms of your title hopes, and so it's just one of those things where you just there's nothing known, there's nothing guaranteed, and the job is not to build a team that can't lose. The job is to build a team that has the highest probability of winning. And like, if you're worried about this team's ability to hold up in the postseason, I'm there with you. I am worried, both in terms of their literal physical health and some of their style of play concerns that we hammered on. But at the end of the day, I do think it needs to constantly be reminded that this is a numbers game and a probability game, and all the front office can do is try to get that number as high as possible.
Yeah, and for the most part, like if you want to take some solace, like for the majority of what the Cavs have dealt with, this season from an injury standpoint, it's fluke stuff, right? Like DeAndre Hunter, bit of a tough play from Ben Mathurin and fractures his finger, right? Evan Mobley. Yeah, Evan Mobley. Yeah, thank you. High ankle sprain. Had the same thing happen in last year's playoffs. It's unfortunate. He's a warrior for his ability to play through that kind of stuff, but that's not a wear and tear kind of fatigue injury. Darius, when he broke his jaw, like that's a fluke, right? And that derailed the whole season, unfortunately. But he was healthy for that Knicks series, right? And he was healthy for the play-in. He like we've seen him finish most of the last few seasons, and I think honestly, how he played after the jaw has impacted how we feel like he plays when he is a little banged up. We've seen him play with an ankle sprain and stuff like that, and still be effective. I think finding out that the toe went back as far as it did, it's kind of funny. It was I think Sham said March 23rd. That's when things started turning around for him. That's when he started getting his shooting touch back. That's when you got, those games against the Knicks and all that after a couple weeks of poor shooting. So we've seen these guys be effective. The one that concerns me a little bit from, a soft tissue wear and tear type thing is Donovan, where you have these recurring issues on the left side, right? Like it was a bone bruise in his left knee last year going into the playoffs, had a calf strain ultimately against the Celtics on his left leg, and that's what caused him to miss the rest of that series. Again, you see kind of that left ankle, left knee soreness, left calf, right? And that's a big part of why my philosophy in going into this offseason is not, I want to increase the load on Donovan Mitchell. Let's make him the primary initiator. Let's trade Darius for a 3-and-D wing and let him play the point guard. I think, this is once again an opportunity for them to redistribute some usage, still using Mitchell as a primary play finisher, but continue to empower Evan Mobley and to build them up in that way.
Yeah, it's there are opportunities that come out of these kinds of things. I think we've been pretty clear we're not on team trade Darius. I think
it's not like I'm not transparent about how I feel about him.
We're pretty clear that we're fans and we think he's kind of the best guy to run our offense moving forward. And again, the next series they lose because they couldn't get stops will be their first. All their series they've lost are on the offensive end, and you can certainly quibble with Darius's ability to stay healthy down the stretch, but I still trust what he can do based on that end compared to just about any of the other options. The
tricky thing with kind of the roster construction of the Cavs is when you look at the top three, there are some redundancies in terms of Garland and Mitchell. Like they're both, smaller guards, 6'3" and under that handle the ball a lot. But on the other hand, there's not that real redundancy because honestly, like if Donovan's out, I don't think Darius is able to step up as a scorer in the way that we would need him to in order for us to be a functioning top 10 type offense. If Darius is out, we have already seen that Donovan isn't the level of playmaker to have a playoff top 10 offense. So he's able to get his own as a scorer. But Indy, what was their philosophy? We're not going to send help at you. We're going to force you, bait you into being a scorer, because if we're not sending a second man to you, we're not giving you playmaking reads that you're going to make, and you see the rest of the team go cold. And Evan Mobley, I don't have to make an argument for why, there's no redundancies with what he does. He's that dude. But going back to what I said about reacting to the Darius surgery news and how I wasn't really, jumping down people's throats about the injury, I feel the same way when it comes to roster building constructions, because I think how scary the second apron and the restrictions are is going to vary based on your level of belief with what the roster they currently have is, right? And I don't mean that
second apron is fine if you like your roster.
I don't mean that 1 through 12. I think, there's opportunities for changes, and we're going to get into that on this podcast. But when it comes to how far you believe the core is going to be able to go when they're healthy, if you were a skeptic going into last year, nothing occurred that's going to change your perspective or how you view or how you feel about them. How can I sit here as an analyst, and everyone knows where my feelings are, but from an analysis standpoint, how am I going to sit here and say, hey, there's a lot of context that went into the playoffs. You really should, open your mind up to changing your perspective and those preconceived notions you had. That's unfair of me to ask to any fan or analyst that I don't happen to agree with their reasoning. How you feel about the second apron and how panicked you are about the restrictions of it is completely impacted by how confident you are in the top end talent of this team.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But I will say it's hard no matter what. would I rather, I remember we might have been talking about this privately, but there had been some reporting about, the owners being like, oh, the second apron is too punitive. Let's maybe tweak some of these things. And part of the reason I was kind of cool with going into the second apron is like, maybe they'll just make it better. Maybe it won't suck so much to be here by the time we're there. Doesn't seem like that's forthcoming. Who's to say? I haven't seen any reporting since those kind of initial that initial noise a year or two ago. But
Could you imagine being the team that made some moves to adjust their situation right before that news broke?
Oh,
I feel like it would happen to the Chicago Bulls.
Yes. Of course, they'd never pay the luxury tax, so no, it wouldn't.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely feel the challenge of it because even on the it actually is just as hard to upgrade the middle class of your roster. It might be harder, honestly. Because if you're on team, Darius isn't as good as like me and you think he is, or Jarrett less so because of where the number's at. But like it's easy to find a Darius Garland trade for some pretty good players. Like you can generally make that work within the numbers. Now, neither of us want to do that because we don't think those players are better than Darius Garland. And
I've also seen a lot of like reasonable examples that'll work within the numbers that don't work within the numbers, which you should probably figure those out.
Yes, you should probably boot up the old trade machine on SpotTrack before you share. But at the end of the day, like I see that for someone like me who is interested, who feels pretty good about the top guys on the team and might want some stylistic changes in the middle class. It is hard. And it's hard for two reasons. It's hard because of the restrictions and not being able to do, 2-for-1 aggregating trades or taking in more money than you bring in. But I think the hidden little demon of it is the fact that it also just completely makes it impossible to work with any other teams who are in your situation. Like, in order for the Cavs to do a trade with the Phoenix Suns, it has to be a dollar for dollar match or it's not legal. God. So all these teams that are, even first apron teams that are right up against it, it's just really, really hard. So like, it's not just that you have limitations. It's that, a third or 2 or 40% of the rest of the league has similar or as punitive of limitations, so you can't do business as comfortably.
No, you really can't. But there are some ways that you can bring in additional help without additional cost, Carter. Do you know which one you're overlooking?
Which one?
Zoom AI Companion. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
But yeah,
Darius. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it's just a challenge to figure out how to meaningfully tweak the roster and like deciding how much you're willing to, how risky you want to get, I guess, in terms of that. Like even within the rotation of the team right now. Isaac had another really rough playoffs. And
Dean did.
And Dean as well. So, part of your brain goes, I don't know if I want to go into the playoffs, hoping for the third or fourth straight year with these guys that they're gonna get hot from three and match their regular season offensive output. But So you might look at like a Jalen Tyson and say, "Hey, Jalen, we didn't really give you much run, but we know the things you're good at, and there are things that maybe we stylistically aren't great at. So like, there's some things that you could bring, but that's going to be a real challenge. And like when you talk about coaches coaching for the playoffs, sometimes that means playing a worse 82 game player in hopes of a better 16 game player, because there's a real world because like there is so much value in guys like Isaac and Dean not screwing up for 82 games. being reliable, being pretty much the same guy night to night to night. And some nights they're better than others, but like their floor is pretty high in terms of what to expect from them on a night to night basis. Throwing transactions off to the side, like how comfortable are you saying, hey, Jalen, we want to see if you're someone who can help us in the postseason, and we're gonna let you figure it out for play 20 minutes a night, even knowing that they'll probably there's a very good chance that Isaac is a better regular season player than him right now, and we don't know that Jalen is a better 16 game player right now.
Yeah.
Like you have to get a lot riskier, I think, in your headspace. And I'm curious to see how ready the team is to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a real risk, right? Like young players are really exciting. But when I was talking about, the synergy stats available on Basketball Index of, where the team ranks in terms of perimeter isolation defense and all those sorts of things, Jalen Tyson did good on the screens, but isolation defense is small sample in the minutes that he played. He is not only the only person below, the 50th percentile in the league in perimeter isolation defense, but he's down below like the 10th. Like it's bad. It was really, really bad for him. And, some of that small sample, you're coming in garbage time, but that's what you expect from young players, right? Like they're not always ready for that moment. He's definitely someone that I would be interested in, right? Like we talked about him last season when they brought him in as, hey, potentially the following season, that could be a Levert succession plan, right? Like he's someone that's going to step up, handle a little bit of that ball handling, handle a little bit of the initiation. I love some of the stuff we saw from him. Like I love the activity. I love his ability to, high point basketballs and get the rebounds. I thought he is someone that, fills up the box score when he's out there. That's exciting to me. I like the fact that he, honestly, I like the fact that he gets turnovers because it shows that he's seeing things. Like it's not, hey, I can't handle the ball and I'm turning the ball over type things. It's, finding the right read, but you're half second slow. And I'd rather have someone that can see that kind of stuff and try to make those plays and explore the space than someone that's just not doing anything out there but not making mistakes. This is going to sound like a convenient answer because it absolutely is. I'm ready to, put him part of the regular rotation because I think if he hits, it's something that the Cavs need and would benefit from within the rotation. I'd also kind of like a little bit of a veteran option to go to if that's not panning out.
That was kind of my next question, which is like, if you're, right now, I think we're really looking at the back half of the Cavs playoff rotation, and to probably put a finer point on it, the Okoro Dean,
after the top six, right now, if we're assuming, the core four guys, Strus and Hunter are all back. After that, I think it's an open question for how you want to distribute your last chips in terms of who you can sign, who you can bring back, who you're going to trade for. Are you going to trade a first round pick? Like,
and I'm kind of presuming Ty is back, and obviously, they know what you know what they say about assuming. But I think for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to presume Ty is back and he's in the rotation, and we're going to chalk up, this that nightmare series to just being a nightmare series, that role players have sometimes, but if he hadn't been so great against Miami, I would maybe feel different. But he did play great for a stretch, and I'm not sure I could say the same for Dean or Ice. Where I don't think either of them played well against Miami either.
No, and before you continue with your point, the one thing I want to say with Okoro is, and Dean has been unhealthy for a lot of kind of these playoff runs. Last year he was healthy, and there was the hesitancy to shoot, right? Like I thought he played well defensively, but you need kind of that willingness to shoot. And particularly like when we talk about how the Cavs need that secondary playmaking, they need guys with juice. They're just not getting that from either of those positions. And I think the potential of that with a Jalen Tyson is what makes me interested in exploring that as an option. But with Okoro in particular, like he shot 38% from three in the playoffs. And, normally that's the type of thing that we celebrate about. But to me, that just goes to show you how meaningless that percentage is, because one, it's at low volume, and two, he was turning down shots, and there was a lack of confidence there. And the fact that there were times where he was floating, not playing confidently after a regular season where I thought he was used better. He was used as a screener, a roller. He's doing all these kind of active things and stuff like that. The fact that that didn't translate to the playoffs and there isn't an injury situation and he is turning down open shots, that to me is different than what we've seen in the past. And that to me makes it more urgent to, really explore what went wrong there and what options are available to us.
You got to explore the space. And I guess my question I was trying to kind of ramp up to is, I think we're both interested in the Jalen Tyson door. If we're at a hallway with 3 doors, and we've got the Jalen Tyson door, we've got the run back the same rotation as last year door, and then the third door is go get someone.
Yep.
Are you more interested in going and getting someone, and even maybe giving up a little capital to do so in the form of players and some draft compensation? Obviously, we're not talking about trading firsts right now, but
I might be.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But are you interested in going through that third door more than you're interested in going through the Jalen Tyson door?
Yes, I think that needs to be the priority. I think that needs to be the priority, but part of why I can confidently answer that is because I've seen how Kenny Atkinson approaches a regular season. I see how deep in the rotation he goes. I know that opportunities are going to arise for guys to step up and play more minutes. I would like Tyson to at least be, the 10th man in the rotation, because we do know that Kenny goes 10 deep. I want him to be part of the regular rotation, but I think the priority should be really looking at what options are available to you. And, it's going to be a tricky line.
Yeah.
What veteran free agents are you able to bring in? Because who you target as a trade candidate, if you're looking at kind of those smaller salaries that still can find actual matching players, the types of players you are going to target are going to be impacted by who's available in the free agency market. Are you able to convince someone like Al Horford to take a veteran deal with the Cavs? That might impact who you look at from a trade standpoint. Like, you might not be looking at a big, you might be looking at a wing, right? Same thing goes for Larry Nance Jr. I think he can get more than that. But we saw last offseason guys like Trey Jones, Gary Trent Jr., a whole bunch of guys that we thought were for surefire, like mid-level, or some like Gary, there was talks of him being like a $20 million a year player, ended up going on a vet minimum to contending teams.
Can I jump in real quick with something?
Yes.
That in the biggest difference this year for those kinds of guys is last year we didn't have room for them because I think we were still ready to go one more year with it's Isaac's spot to lose. It's Dean's spot to lose. And it's really hard to go into those conversations with any of these, guys who basically like, I'll take a haircut to be on a good team and try to rehab my value, like, because like the difference between 3 million and 2 million is not moving the needle for me, and I'm throwing out BS numbers, but you get what I'm saying? I do feel like the sea has changed enough for this Cavs team that it's easier to go to a Larry and say, hey, if you sign here, our plan is to have you in the rotation.
Yes.
And I don't think I would have said that going into last year to a Gary Trent Jr. or a Trey Jones. I don't think you could reliably promise that in a way that any player would believe you. I think the back end of this Cavs rotation is shaky enough in terms of how confident we are in their postseason contributions that I do think the Cavs have better ammo going into this summer.
I think the other factor is we're not coming off a 48-win season where guys were hurt, coaching change, you don't know what it's going to look like, what's the stability of the roster, all that sort of thing. They lost in the second round. Boston just won the championship. Boston's tearing it apart. Jason Tatum's going to miss next season, right? The Cavs won 64 games. I think it is an easier sell for a veteran to say, hey, not only are you going to play a role, the East is wide open. There's a real chance we're the best regular season team in the Eastern Conference. We need to get over the hump in the playoffs. We think some veteran, veteran push can make a difference here. Maybe that is attractive to, like you said, a Larry Nance Jr. Malcolm Brogdon, someone that's been mentioned as willing to take a veteran minimum deal to, play for a contender. Does that impact how you view things with Ty Jerome, right? And all the time when it comes to these free agents, like, you can say, hey, I like what he brings more than the guys you're considering bringing back. You don't know if they have any interest in the Cavs. You don't know who's actually an option or not. But I'm saying whoever does express interest when you do you're talking to agents and you're back channeling and all that kind of stuff, that might inform what you're looking at from a trade standpoint. That might inform kind of where you're prioritizing your energy to fill out the roster. And like for me, it's also a different conversation because DeAndre Hunter's on the roster. Like that really, really changed the dynamic. And like my top priority when it comes to this offseason, I'd love to add a power forward. I'd love to add a backup power forward so that DeAndre Hunter isn't default slotted into that role. I don't have passionate feelings about who should start, particularly if we're going to be upping Mobley's usage. I think Max Strus might be more suited to that than a DeAndre Hunter, but I want both of those guys basically playing those starter minutes, or like 28 minutes a game. I want them both to be on the wing, but I want to have that power forward that makes it easier for Hunter to slide down to small forward and for us to play bigger around our smaller backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, how good did it feel, even just archetypically, whenever Dean and DeAndre were sharing the floor at the 3 and the 4 next to Evan or Jared at the 5? Like, it felt good. They felt big, but then when you tried to run those lineups in the postseason, it's just like, well, they're not guarding Dean, and when he catches the ball, he can't really attack, and like, it just you weren't getting the yield, from those lineups. And like adding a little bit more juice, whether as a finisher, as a dunker spot lurker, as a corner spacer, like whatever it is, someone with a little bit more juice, a little bit more oomph, and I think at the end of the day, that's what I want from this Cavs offseason is oomph injections. I want, like, I watched two teams make the NBA Finals with sharp elbows and nasty pushing and shoving and grabbing and holding and bumping. And yeah, they're also fundamentally really solid, but people aren't terrified to go against the Thunder because Alex Caruso slides his feet so well. They're terrified to go against the Thunder because every time you bring it in, someone's digging in and poking at the ball and slapping at your arms and slapping at your hands. I almost like, if the Cavs are near the top of the league in foul rate next year, I'll be happy. It's almost one of those like negative stats that you want to see more of because it means the team's playing a more physical brand of basketball. And like, so like, that's kind of almost what I'm looking for is like, I want oomph and I want chaos generator event kind of play from this team. Like, I'm sick of being the fundamental nice team. I want to see them kind of rough folks up.
Yeah. And if we are conceding that we think from a talent standpoint to make sure you're maintaining the high-end talent, at the very least, you got to have your top 3 guys back. You got to think about everything else all around them. And, the one thing I'm going to keep repeating all offseason is they need to change how it feels to play against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They need to be able to maintain an identity. That doesn't mean always playing one style. Your identity might be, hey, we're that team that does experiment. We are that team that plays, tries different things. If, the sauce switching, we made arguments for and against it on a previous podcast. If that's something that they want to maintain, you got to ask yourself, do we have the right personnel to execute that at a high level? Do we want to have Jared Allen out there? Is he ideal for when we're playing that style? Do we want teams to be able to get Tyrese Halliburton onto him every single time? Now, people might default to, does that mean trade Jared Allen or whatever? No, it doesn't mean that. Like, when you look from a roster construction standpoint and like percentage of the salary cap, you're talking about like an Alex Caruso and in a couple of years, Isaiah Hartenstein tier player. If you're bringing in a power forward, another option there that allows you to play a little bit of a different style defensively, there might be some matchups where you play a little less Allen and you are playing, a Larry Nance Jr. or a Dwight Powell or whomever you're bringing in, B-ball Paul.
You weren't ready for that list.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was
you
really
weren't
tough.
ready for that list at all.
Bobby Portis, Yabusele, yeah,
Yabu is high on my short list, brother. Let me tell you.
And, my dream candidate, which I think is going to be out of our price range, but why I was advocating for him 2 years ago, PJ Washington. I think that is absolutely ideal.
Such a helpful player. I will say, to your point about Jarrett kind of being in that Caruso and not even yet in the Hartenstein range, is I do think it really goes to show you how much team context and overall team success colors the way we feel about players and how they fit within the context of their teams. I mean, you had the Thunder benching their $30 million a year acquisition. And people were surprised by the strategy of it, but no one, I didn't see a single person suggest that they had made a poor investment in adding Hartenstein to their team. Yeah. I didn't see anyone suggest that Chet Holmgren, who played 24 minutes in that game, was not ever going to get to where OKC needed him to get, because they have so much depth, they have so much stylistic diversity in how they can play, especially on the defensive end of the floor, that it's all defensible and thus easier to rationalize. So much of the quote unquote Cavs need to move on from Jarrett conversation is rooted in the fact that if Jarrett is not playing is not having a good game, when he goes to the bench, they don't have lineups that can kill teams.
Yep.
And that can play different styles, generally, one of my big gripes about a Cavs downshift, even going back to when Niang was on the team, was they didn't get different, they just got smaller. Yeah. They didn't feel like a whole different kind of version of them. They just kind of felt like a little shootier and a little less anything else, So I feel like that's, if I'm Kobe, I'm really trying to generate as many lineup combinations that allow them not to need every individual contributor to be on their freaking A game all through a playoff series, because guys at Jarrett's, salary slot roughly are guys that you're supposed to be able to say, hey, it's not your night, it's not your matchup tonight, you're going to play 24 minutes. But this version of the Cavs, because DeAndre couldn't catch the ball or shoot because his thumb was dislocated, because Dean had another really rough offensive postseason, because Okoro had another offseason. It's you're looking around your options to go, Jarrett, just figure it out, buddy. And that's in to his whatever the opposite of credit is. By the end of the series, he wasn't figuring it out, and it wasn't going well. But again, I just think the context matters so much, and they need to just keep juicing the rest of this roster with that kind of stylistic diversity, and it might mean being a little risky with what kinds of promises you make in terms of rotation spots in free agency, and how aggressive you want to be on the trade market.
Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to as well is the Cavs have a lot of depth, but in terms of how you access that depth and how you get them to perform, the number of routes were very limited. It's usually Donovan or Darius or Evan, generating some looks for guys, and they're out there being play finishers. You don't have the ability to create from so many different positions. And, as much as I want size and I want physicality and I want it to feel a little different, I want a little bit of juice of playmaking, right? That's why Al Horford is appealing to me. That's why Larry's appealing for me. Obviously, that comes with an injury risk. And obviously, I'm biased as a friend of the podcast. I'd love to have Larry. I think it would be great to have him on the roster. But he's a terrific playmaker. He's someone that you are able to, get the ball to when teams are pressuring. Because, when teams are being physical, when you're receiving that pressure, the best way to beat it and the best way to prevent it from even getting established is by swinging that ball and creating. You look at the Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best playmakers I've ever seen playing basketball. Like the way that he takes care of the basketball, the way that you're able to run offense through him and all that, it's terrific. When you look at the true usage, so, usage rate and assist opportunities generated, TJ McConnell has a higher true usage rate on that team than Tyrese Halliburton because they're comfortable allowing Tyrese to play off ball and to generate action and run offense coming off a swing. The Cavs denied Tyrese Halliburton the ball a lot against the Pacers in the playoffs. What were they comfortable doing? Andrew Nembhard's going to run more pick and roll actions for the entire playoff series than Halliburton did. And if the ball happens to swing to Hallie on a possession, we're good with it. If it doesn't, that's fine as well. We're going to allow the Cavs to try to be physical and face guard him and take him away from the ball. And, it swings to him with 6 seconds left and he's got an ISO with Jared Allen. He's going to take that step back to his left. Like, they're completely comfortable with that. And that's something I think the Cavs can emulate. Darius is one of the better off-ball guards that we have in this game. Donovan's made huge strides there. You need more guys that can initiate, that have a little bit of juice as a playmaker. Max Strus is not Steve Nash, but think of how much better the offense feels and how much he unlocks with just the playmaking he has. You have one or two more guys that can do that, and you have bona fide play finishers like a DeAndre Hunter and the top end guys. I just think it's going to be so much harder to turn the water off for this offense when it comes to the playoffs.
Yep, and it also makes it easier to have guys at 75, 80% for a series or two, because they can just be part of a machine. Like, as much context as we've provided in trying to kind of argue, like, this wasn't the best version of the Cavs because of these injuries, like, I keep going back to last year's playoffs where Indy is down to Halliburton. They're down like 3 rotation players, and they're still beating the hell out of Boston and making them earn every bucket and making Boston guard every possession and imposing their style of play even without all their best players there to do it. I think about Orlando and having their season from hell this year. Down a lot of important players. The vibes are wrong all year. They basically like barely squeak in, and then what do? They impose their style throughout an entire playoff series, even when they're completely outgunned and really have no shot from a talent perspective and a Styles make fights perspective, but they still impose their will, and like that's where I think some of that playmaking depth, what that kind of stuff gets you in the form of Indy or in the form of Orlando. They have so many guys that can do what they want to do. And I just feel like, to your point, all the stuff for the Cavs is generated at the top. Even when it's Mobley getting more, which we still want, it's still a top-down offense, which it's not that in terms of like, like in terms of touches maybe, but like it is that in terms of like impact and initiation. Like, you look at Indy and they're running dribble handoffs with Thomas Bryant. Ben Mathurin gets to cook. Ben Shepherd gets to run some side pick and roll. Up and down their roster, everyone gets to do stuff. Neesmith, Nembhard, like there's just stuff happening up and down their roster. And like, I do think I'm trying not to like over-index. Like, the Cavs can't just become the Pacers.
No.
Like, they still have to be themselves.
But you can steal stuff.
There are a lot of good things to steal from this Pacers team.
Absolutely.
And frankly, like, there should be like a little bit of like, well, damn, like, yes, there's a miss on like the overall talent analysis of that Pacers roster. Like, they're definitely more talented than we thought they were. But I think we've just kind of forgotten the as a basketball community, like, the story of this Pacers season to me is forgetting that the whole thing that we love about basketball is the more than the sum of your parts, is the, like, because how many pickup games have you played in where either your team or the other team's just got it going and it doesn't matter? Like, it's like or you're playing with some boys that you know really well, and like that this guy's going to cut here and this guy's going to do this and that guy's going to do that, and it's like and you beat a team that should be running you off the floor. Like we've all been part of that. We all know what that is, and I think we kind of forgot about it in all the spreadsheet tracking and transition and player rankings and transaction tracking. Like this is the stuff that matters, and this is the stuff, especially when you don't have a top one type of star, you need to find a way to bottle up.
Yeah, you gotta take from all over the league, right? It's a copycat league. There's value in stealing stuff. When you see someone doing something good that you're not currently doing, take that from them. I wouldn't have made it through college without that. Like it's important to find these ways to become more than the sum of your parts, because I don't think the Cavs have accomplished that yet. I think they have done it. Like if I look at the regular season, I think they've done it offensively. The other thing that kind of strikes me is when it comes to the regular season approach, I don't want it to be as kind of plain. I don't want it to be shell offense and defense like we did in the regular season. I thought we added some wrinkles throughout the year. But I think for the most part, we played our style and it was good enough to get 64 wins. I want to see a little bit more experimenting. I want to see, trying things out. I want to try playing different styles. I want to try playing different lineups. Like the fact that we got so little of DeAndre Hunter with Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen, that's a bummer.
A mess. It's a mess.
Honestly, the fact that we got so little DeAndre Hunter at power forward next to Mobley with Garland and Mitchell, like we got almost none of that. I think we actually got none of that in the playoffs, and obviously availability had something to do with that. But that was something that we thought, hey, maybe that could be a closing lineup. They might go away from Jared in these moments and go to that. I want to see that kind of stuff. I want to see different looks. I want to see, as much as I loved the predictability and the reliability of the rotation. I know Sam Merrill's checking in at this time. I know, Isaac's checking in at this time. Like this is how we're going to run things. I want to see, let's get practice of changing up a little bit of what we do for different matchups. I don't think it needs to be every game. I think Nick Nurse wore out the Raptors trying to change the defense with every single matchup that they had in the regular season, but prioritize one game a week. Of, hey, this is one that we want to try something. We like this matchup. We've done a little bit of scouting. We're going to approach this a little bit differently. These teams that we see in the playoffs, the teams that are still playing, they play a variety of different styles, right? Like when OKC went away from Hartenstein into the starting lineup, yeah, some of that was because of injuries. Chet missed time, guys missed time, and they were able to go to that. But it was also a lineup that they would start second halves with. They would change up things mid-game, even if you have kind of your ceremonial starters. I want to see just a little bit more of that. And I don't think that that's something that's going to really increase how much of a load and how much we're asking of these guys in a regular season.
Well, cool thing about this is I don't think we have a coach that gets high on his own supply too much. No. And it's
we're
going to be
ideas out there.
And it's going to be a real challenge, I think, and I think we're going to learn a lot about Kenny over the course of the season, because like it was just kind of pure uphill or pure downhill sledding all regular season, and even when he made certain calls like that I wouldn't have made, that everything kind of just seemed to work.
Just worked. Yeah.
And like now, like this is the first time we're gonna see Kenny react to some failures, and like as much context as there is around injuries, I think Kenny would tell you they could have won that series, or at least certainly could have extended it if they had played certain.
I think
parts
everyone in that locker
better.
room, including him, thought they could win it, and I agree with them.
And so it comes down to like, I always go back, and it's going to be a long off season of me saying this. It's like, what lessons is Kenny going to choose to learn? Is it was it that the team didn't do what he was telling them to do well enough, and he needs to make sure he's telling them stuff, or like how much is he gonna question his own strategy and his own rotations and his own prep? And because like you can't just be you can't just flop around and chase every potential insecurity, right? So he's gonna have to decide certain things that he's like, no, I was right to do it this way, and I can't change that, because that's who I am as a coach versus I thought this is who I was as a coach, but maybe I shouldn't do it this way next time. And because you can't change everything all the time. You will lose your locker room so fast if they feel you floundering trying to find who you are. So, but you also can't be like this stodgy, we've seen so many coaches get run out where they run into,
they didn't adapt their style.
Their battle plan doesn't survive first contact, and they're just like, no, just do it my way but better over and over and over again, and eventually that wears thin and players stop believing in that. So big test for Kenny this upcoming season. I think an underrated quiet test for Kenny that he's really we'll learn more about him this upcoming season than we ever could have this past season.
I totally agree with that. And honestly, this is the part of basketball that I find so fascinating. Like how you adjust, how you learn from these experiences. I love that. And what I'm really looking forward to with Kenny going through this challenge and the team going through this challenge is how transparent Kenny is, right? Like he talks about, how much he learns from every experience that he has, whether it's coaching internationally, whether it's being an assistant, whether it's his own personal failures. There's so much reflection and transparency, and that's red meat for this podcast. I'm really looking forward to hearing what his reflections are, what they work on throughout the offseason. And I trust the front office to do their due diligence. Really, you owe it to yourself to find out every single option that's available to you. And frankly, outside of Evan Mobley, you listen to absolutely everything. And knowing what that means, I don't think that there's an option available that makes sense to trade Donovan. I don't think there's an option available that makes sense to trade Darius. But you have to listen to everything out there. But if I don't think it makes sense to trade Darius for a collection of role players, I sure don't think that about Donovan Mitchell. And I continue to say, of all the great things that Donovan has brought to this organization, and the stuff he's done to win me over, the way that he has sacrificed, the way he has adapted his game, the leadership that he shows, all of that, everything that Donovan has done, I think the most valuable thing of bringing him in is it started the stress test early. Guys got put in situations where they could be pressured, where they could fail in the playoffs, where they can learn from those experiences, and we can learn about them. This is one more opportunity for us to learn about the team, and we're going to find out what lessons they chose to learn, as you like to say.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I'm really manifesting another sit down with Kenny. Maybe I'm going to ask him some of these questions directly.
Hell yeah, I would love to see that. I absolutely would love to see that. We will continue our off-season coverage. Big thanks to everyone tuning in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.